Okay. Hi everybody, Lone Wolf Prime here. So, final video of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Come a long way, haven't we? I would say we have. Yeah, a lot of bumps, a lot of good and bad moments. I have a full playlist of it if you want to go and look. Otherwise, yeah, final video. My final video of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. And just like Iceborne, I feel like it's more fitting to have this be how I end it. Now, as you can see, this is the list that I'm going to be assorting all the monsters in. And we are going to rank every single monster from F tier, which is the easiest, to S plus tier, the absolute hardest. Now, I have been making tier makers left and right throughout the updates, and a lot of them are hot takes, a lot of them are just me being salty, or just not looking too hard into the game. So, playing for over 700 hours at most, I feel like I'm entitled to do this. And through my experiences, I believe this is how I'm going to rank each monster. So, take it for what you will. All opinion based. All opinion based. If you disagree, feel free to put it in the comments section of this video. However, don't be toxic. Be polite. Give it some constructive criticism. Any toxic comments or any life-threatening comments or anything negative and not constructive criticism gets taken down. Simple as that. You get hidden and blocked from my channels forever. So, tread carefully on what you say. Now, that being said, let us begin. So, I made a prototype list as well. I'm not going to show it. I feel like if I did, that would, spoil it. But I'm going to go off of that prototype. And I have a few changes from that I need to make as well. So, first and foremost, Great Itsuchi. Very easy, very easy. You know it from the demo. You've played him since the demo. And, yeah. All he has is tail attacks to his name. His small Itsuchis attack you as well, attacking packs and groups. I think he has a pin as well. Not 100% sure. I'm probably confusing him with Monster Hunter Rise, Monster Hunter GU. But yeah, he's got a lot of tail attacks. As an afflicted, he gets a little more harder. But I feel like as an afflicted, he's not that hard either. Outside of the Blood Blight and the extra damage cap and HP. So, I feel like Great Itsuchi is the easiest monster in the game. And, yeah. Before I go forward with this list any further, I am going to be rating the Afflicteds as well in this list. I initially thought about giving them a separate list, but I don't think that works. Not with how far these monsters go. So I feel like if I rank them as well with their afflicted forms, this might feel more complete. So, next monster, Kuliaku. Funny enough, I think this is probably a one step up from my previous list of Iceborne, but there isn't much to Kuliaku either. Same gimmick as World. Picks up eggs, picks up pots, rocks, anything it could find, and tries to bash you with them, or rush you down with them. Good stunning, but not much of a threat. Weak to water. His afflicted form is no better, honestly. The Blood Blight will always be a problem alongside him, getting stronger through higher HP and damage, but overall, even as an afflicted, I didn't really struggle that much with them. Most afflicteds will, of course, knock you out or make you faint at least once. I'm pretty sure I've fainted once to this guy alongside Itsuchi, but overall, I don't think it was because of anything too dangerous. And you just have to watch what you're doing, basically, when you fight Kuliaku. Especially as an Afflicted, because, yeah, Afflicteds, of course, will knock you out. But as long as you have a good game plan down, I feel like Kuliaku's easy. So, next on my list, Daimyo Hermitar. Good to see Daimyo Hermitar in the New World, but boy, did they butcher him hard. Especially. He's a punching bag. A literal punching bag. Any of you who have tuned into my Twitch streams throughout this series, I gotta say, I most of my quests I start with before the main quests of the streams. I always go for like the event, or I go for like a regular Daimyo or afflicted Daimyo, just to practice. This guy is literally my practice punching bag because he can take hits. His moves are very predictable. They nerfed a lot about him. His hitboxes were also nerfed. A lot of he gets a new counter to him withdrawing into a shell. Him burrowing into the ground is more telegraphed because you can see where he goes more so than just predict where he's going to go with his rumbling in the previous games. A lot of the moves you can dish out. As a great sword user, a lot of moves you can dish out with counter or strong arm, you can give back like twofold, even more so than that. And a lot of my hunts with Daimyo literally were like under 5 minutes. Like, I think my least timed one was probably less than a minute. And this was the event version as well. So, yeah. I mean, outside of the butchered hitboxes, making him weaker, I would say that his water range is slightly better, but not by a lot, I would say. I feel like the biggest buff he got was just the countering when he's in his withdrawn state, because you get less time to react depending on the weapon you use. But, yeah. Very fun fight. Very easy. I wouldn't have even considered him a G rank monster, honestly. I would have considered him obviously like a low high rank monster at best in terms of difficulty. I would have just put him into regular Rise instead of incorporating him into Sunbreak, but I'm not Capcom, so what do I know? Royal Ludrith. Another easy monster. Nowadays, I just call Royal Ludrith SpongeBob because of like the sponge on its neck, but he could be annoying. Death rolls like an alligator, bubbles, water. It's only Water Blight that really makes him a problem alongside his mobility, but not much of a problem so much as just a hindrance or an annoyance, basically. And if you don't have stun resistance while he rushes you down, you can get stunned quite easily, so take that into account as well for what you will. But there really is not much to Royal Ludrith. I put him above Daimyo because he's a lot more faster, doesn't hold still as much as Daimyo or the others below him. I could argue that Kuliaku could go up here, but I don't think Kuliaku has enough to really consider him to be anywhere near easier than this, or a little harder than this. So, yeah. There isn't much to Royal Ludrith, so, you know, just exert caution and just watch what he does in terms of his rushdowns, but a very farmable monster if you want to use him to, like, improve your afflicted rank, your anomaly ranking, basically. Okay, next monster on my list is Tetranodon. His name is hard to pronounce, honestly. It took me a bit to look it up. But, yeah. Basically, he's basically a substitute to Great Jagras in Monster Hunter World, but he's a big boy. He's basically the sumo wrestler of Monster Hunter at the moment. Has the same gimmick as Great Jagras in the sense that he consumes something and he grows big with a big belly. Only in this case, he sucks up water and makes himself huge. He can move his body around messing with you. His body slams can cause tremors. I think when he blows up, when he like sucks in water, he gets a roar effect as well. He also water blights you. I think he also has a pin as well. But overall, same problem as Daimyo. only with a little more mobility, is that he's a punching bag, more so than anything. So, as an afflicted, not much of a trouble either, not as aggressive. So you could take it, you could take hits, you could heal hits. Especially when blood blighted, when DPS is a factor. So I feel like the only thing you have to worry about is when he starts moving his weight and tries to slam you, because that's where he does the most damage. Otherwise, overall a fairly easy monster, and a good monster to hunt too. I actually liked hunting him a little bit with Katana. But yeah, despite that, very, very easy. Arceros. Yeah. Arceros is one of those annoying easy monsters that loves to give you bear hugs. A lot of what he does are bear hugs, more so than anything. Steals honey. I don't think the honey heals him so much as it just satiates his hunger. But a lot of his moves, a lot of his swipes are roughly the same as they were in the old gen. To the sense that it has a lot of range, can catch you off guard. As an afflicted, he's quite annoying as well. The damage, especially from his swipes, are amplified even more. So it's easy to imagine that Arceros can easily knock you out, but not to that extent where you consider him, oh my god, he's so hard. He's just annoying when afflicted. Otherwise, a lot of him, he can be slammed pretty easily. A lot of his body can be hit. Otherwise, he's just moving his weight around. He swipes at you, and yeah. Among the beast wyverns, or the fanged beasts, I mean, to actually thrive in this game, but he's probably the easiest of them. So, next monster is going to be Great Rogi. Most bird wyverns are very, very easy to hunt, so what carries Great Rogi up to this point in the F tier is poison. That's really all it is. He throws himself around. His poison, easy to spread around because of the sack on his neck, but overall, you break that, it kind of reduces the range of the poison gas he spumes out of his mouth. As an afflicted monster, I don't think it benefits him that much. To the fact that, sure, he runs into you or thrusts into you, basically, and you're blood blighted. But even then, if you're poisoned, you land enough hits. The poison becomes less of a problem, especially since the Rogis don't have that many moves to really hit you with. So if the Rogis had more tools under the belt, they'd probably be like right here. But overall, the bird wyverns I've never really been considered the hardest monsters in the series. But that's just from my experience. Take it for what you will. Now, going into E tier with slightly harder monsters, but still easy. Great Bagi. Another returning bird wyvern in the series. And one step above Rogi, Great Rogi, is because of sleep. And as an afflicted, sleep is very annoying. So, an afflicted Bagi with sleep, you could get easily one-tapped by this guy if you're under-geared, or if you don't heal before you're sleeping, or if you don't have the energy drinks to heal from to get rid of sleep. So take that as well for a grain of salt. I think he hunts with his pack as well. I'm not 100% sure. But as an afflicted, he can be very annoying if you don't know how to deal with his sleep or movements, basically. But overall, another easy monster once you eliminate the sleep factor from him. Lagombi. Lagombi. You'd think that Lagombi would get some changes going into Sunbreak and Rise, but not by a lot. The range is still abysmal. in terms of the swipes that it can do. The ice, the snow it does is still pretty bad, but since they got rid of Snowman in the New World, or they nerfed it, I think. I don't think you can get frozen by the monsters anymore. But the ice blight is still a problem for your wire bugs. However, even as an afflicted, I feel that Lagombi is not that hard. But the fact he slides around like a penguin for being a very strong hare, the mobility factor alongside the damage factor are why Lagombi are above Arceros. Usually I'd put Arceros above Lagombi. In fact, I probably should. But yeah. Thinking about it now, I would probably do this. I would probably do this just to save myself. Because I feel like Arceros is slightly harder than Lagombi, but not by much. Both of these fanged beasts, while they thrived in Sunbreak and Rise, did not present much of a challenge. Arceros a little more so, for the reasons mentioned previously, but yeah, a little bit of fixer-upper on my end in comparison to the prototype I made to this list. So that's where I put these two fanged beasts right now. Now, above them, Volvidon. Another fanged beast that shares the same spot with these two. I don't like Volvidon that much. Volvidon is even more annoying as an afflicted. You're free to ask my pack about their experiences with this guy as an afflicted, and pretty sure all of them will agree of how annoying this monster is as an afflicted. The fact that he rolls around more so than attacks you is what makes him annoying. The fact that he moves around, bounces around while he rolls can be annoying. The fact that this monster, I believe, is the only monster that exhumes gas that can soil you, kind of makes me miss Congalala a little bit, but not by much. So being soiled stops you from healing, but as an afflicted, that's pretty much a that's a big faltering, especially if you don't have deodorants. Since this monster, I believe, is the only monster that soils you in this game, deodorant is even more of an essential thing for this guy. He could paralyze you as well with his spit. His range is good with his tongue, but not by... but it doesn't actually hurt you that much. It's the fact that he moves around more often, rolls around more often, as well as paralysis and soiled, is why he's above the other fanged beasts. And I mean, I'm sure others have figured out ways to deal with it outside of using bowgun, but I feel like trapping him is more of an effective tool, as well as slamming him. Making sure he doesn't move or catching his movement is key to actually defeating him. But outside of that, the range on his swipes is also abysmal. Slightly above that of Lagombi's, but not as much as that of Arceros's. But much more mobile than these two. Much more mobile than these two. So, exert caution if you can. Now we go into some of the newer monsters of this game. Akinosum. Katana's favorite parasol bird wyvern, basically, or flying wyvern, I think. Akinosum is basically a discount Yian Kutku, in the sense that the fireballs that Akinosum can do are very, very tiny, but bounce around, causing fire blight. The fact that it could fly and flop around, as well as do various versions of acrobatics, especially in its afflicted state, make him a very tricky monster to hunt as a early monster, especially when going as an afflicted. But overall, the parasol frills on its head make it easier to take down, especially. Breaking parts is slightly more easier on this thing. And overall, I feel like just flashing him out of the sky, which I feel like is not even worth it, especially since he doesn't go up that far when you're going up against him. So you can easily take him down. Outside of that, a lot of Akanovsum's moves are pretty telegraphed, especially. So there isn't much to really go on in terms of the difficulty of this monster, except for the fact that the flying and the mobility factor, as well as the fire blight, are what make this monster hard, especially as an afflicted, but not by a lot. Remember that this is like slightly. This is not even medium. We're not even at medium yet. The fact that Akanovsum's at easy and not anywhere like here just puts on the fact that this monster is not something to like sleep on, but also not something to sneeze at either. Easy, but not one to be slept on, if you don't know what you're doing. Now, time for our favorite fruit monkey. And that is Bishaten. Bishaten, yeah, I actually like this monkey. Has a lot of the aerial mobility of that of Paolumu, especially what he does with his tail by standing upward. You can yank him out of it with marionette spiders to like snatch his fruit. The fruit itself are why this monster is not any higher, not D tier at best, because the fruit can either paralyze or poison you, but the jumbo fruit you steal from him can still heal you. So while Bishaten, especially as an afflicted, can afflict not just blood blight, but poison and paralysis. I mean, I farmed this monster to get even up to like AR 100 at that, to be honest. I actually enjoyed hunting Bishaten that much. But as far as difficulty goes, I don't think he's that hard, in all honesty. And a lot of his moves just require some study. A lot of his moves are easily counterable, especially. But when he's up on his tail, when he's standing on his tail, I feel like that's where he's a lot more dangerous, because it's hard to actually get in with certain weapons, but not by much. Otherwise, his aerial mobility leaves a little bit to be distinguished, but when he starts actually targeting you, he could stun you if you don't have stun resistance. So, a fun monster, but one you just have to like be slightly cautious with. Not by much. Not by much. Now a returning world monster that I actually kind of slept on a bit here, to be honest. I don't hunt him that often, and that is Puke Puke. Yeah, I hate to break it to you, Capcom, but cutting and pasting a monster into world, from world into Sunbreak, doesn't really make them any more harder or easier, especially when the coding is either there or not. I feel like Puke Puke is slightly better than in Iceborne. Slightly. Not by much. A lot of poison moves. You're better off not even using antidotes against them because of the poison factor. As an afflicted, especially if you can't get clean hits in, the double damage can actually add up. But that's also the factor of if you can land as many high-hitting hits as possible, you can heal more than you lose in terms of poison. So Puke Puke feels like a discount Rathian in terms of how it fights, especially when it's more poison-based, but I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that bad in terms of difficulty. So, yeah. A fun monster to hunt, but this is one of those instances where he doesn't get that much harder as an afflicted, so even though I'm saying this, I still think you should be careful when dealing with poison. Otherwise, as long as you know what you're doing, you have your spacing down, you know his moves, and you can dish out enough damage, Puke Puke is just Puke Puke. He's just not that much of a trouble at all. Now, yeah, a Fanged Wyvern that I would think got better, but I don't know. I kind of sleep on him a little bit, but Tobikadachi has similar moves in the sense that he can still glide around the air, shock you. I think he paralyzes too, but more so on that, he stuns you. His lunges are a little more annoying than they were in Iceborne. But yeah, as far as this flying electric squirrel goes, I feel like the one thing that makes him more annoying than some of the others is his mobility. He's very fast. That doesn't mean you can't stop him with like a marionette spider or with like a flash bomb. Cause yeah, he likes to stay on the walls, which he could easily be taken down from. A lot of his moves could be telegraphed, but yeah, the shock factor as well as the stun factor. I don't remember if he still paralyzes or not, but overall, I didn't hunt Tobi-Kadachi that much because I didn't really have a need to do so, in all honesty. But I don't feel that Tobi-Kadachi is that hard at all, especially as an afflicted. I feel like Tobi-Kadachi can easily be walked on as long as you know what you're doing. Otherwise, yeah. Moving on to a pretty forgettable monster, honestly. Anjanath. Now, remember earlier when I mentioned about how copy and pasting a monster from World into Sunbreak don't make, or into Rise don't make? Yeah, Anjanath is one of those prime examples you see. And I hunted him almost at AR 300, and even as an afflicted, he's not that hard. Anjanath has been butchered from going into Rise, like heavily butchered. I remember in World where I got one-shotted by his flames when I was undergeared, or when I was like fighting him as an urgent. But when I fought him in Rise, he was not hard at all. A lot of his moves were butchered in terms of damage. His range is less. And even as an afflicted, going into almost AR 300, his damage didn't even add up either. And this is with even with like lackluster gear. So this is just one of those instances where coding was a problem with Anjanath more so than anything. His difficulty is just not there. He's not hard at all, even as an afflicted. But the fact that his damage is higher than that of Tobi's makes him more so than Tobi. But I feel like these two are close. Maybe a little here than here, but it is very close between these two. Very close. I guess if I want to be a little more technical, I would say right here, because Tobi going into Sunbreak or into Rise feels a little more so than Anjanath, especially when you mount. But yeah, I think that seems more fair as far as where I put him. But yeah, it's not even close. This is very close, but they're not even close to being like where this is, basically. Not even close. It's a little bit of a little bit. It's a little bit there. Anything I didn't specify on, you can put in the comment section of my video, and I'll respond to it if I've covered it or not. But yeah, that's where I stand with them so far. Now, next monster is Somnicanth to round out the E tier. Now, Somnicanth is the same problem as Boggy, but with more mobility and more tricks. She can flash you, she can blast blight you, especially. I think she can heal too, now that I think about it, but not by a lot. I think she does. I am not 100% sure. I'm probably drawing a blank a little bit, but her mobility, her ability to put monsters and hunters to sleep even more so with her gas, is even more so than that of Boggy. More range, especially more range. So energy drinks are 100% a must here for Somnicanth. Blast Blight is not much of a problem as long as you stay away from the clams or the shells that she smashes when she's in the water, when she's in her like her water lounging mode, I think. when she's laying down, basically, like she's in the water. More so than that, stun resistance, just to stop the flash when she's smacking two shells together to flash you. Otherwise, a lot of her moves don't do that much damage, but the sleep factor itself can add up. So, I just recommend you just have some extra utilities dealing with Somnicanth, and you'll be fine. Not that bad. Not that bad of a monster. Yes. Giratotus. It's so depressing. The Pisces Wyverns. How the mighty have fallen, honestly. I remember back in GU where Plesioth could easily one-tap me, could, like, put me to sleep. Especially with all that Plesioth can do. Beatotus as well in the ice with Iceborne. Giratotus, one of the mud boys and girls in the New World. But Giratotus is just another copy and paste with lack of program to it, just like Anjanath. But only difference is, well, I didn't hunt him that much. The mud and the water blight can add up to you. Him being in the water especially can be a problem when he like burrows in the water and then jumps out to attack you. The damage is higher than that of Anjanath's, but not by much. The fact that it's more mobile and you have to fight him in the water are what make this monster even more so. And the mud kind of messing with your mobility if you're anywhere near the mud is still a problem. Breaking parts is harder, especially since Giratotus likes to cover itself in mud, similar to another monster I'm going to bring up in this list. In fact, I feel like I can bring him up right now. Both of these two mud boys, Bareth and Giratotus, boy did mud get butchered in the New World. I gotta say, I was just as depressed about the mud boys here as I was in Iceborne, honestly. I liked fighting Bareth in the Old World. But even in Rise, in comparison to Iceborne, neither cases were hard at all. Even as an Afflicted, they were not hard. I mean, same moves. There's no like differentiation from Rise from Iceborne to Rise. I mean, if you see something, by all means, let me know. But I didn't see much difference in comparison to these two. I mean, they still fight each other, but it's not very common they do because of how Rise Sunbreak is in comparison to Iceborne and World. But yeah, it's one of those sad cases where the monsters were cut and pasted into the game, and not much was really done to them to make them any better of a hunt in terms of like enjoyment. But yeah, I digress on that one. And to be honest, I have a like hot taken theory as to why these two are not that good in comparison. And I would have to say it's because of this guy. This forgettable monster, the Almudryn. I question Capcom as to why they made this monster. There's nothing to him. The golden sludge that he extrudes into his mud, the polluted mud, I think, the damage racks up. It's really a problem if you don't have good mobility in mud. But how often are you gonna get mudded by your monsters? Because you see where the mud boys are here, and there's only 3 of them. There's only 3 monsters here that like to throw mud at you, basically. That love to mudsling. Not as much as Twitter. They don't mudsling as hard as Twitter does. But yeah, you don't have to worry about mud. These guys are not that hard. I mean, if you want a good switch axe build early on, you could fight Almudryn for his armor. I didn't like the design of the monster or the armor, and I didn't hunt him that much, but he did not feel that hard either, just slightly annoying because of he likes to move his tail around like a giant fist. But overall, I mean, you do you, I do me, if in terms of how you feel about this monster, but I don't think he's any harder or anywhere harder in comparison to some of the other monsters on this list. I mean, you can break his tail and reduce his damage, but a lot of what he does is not that intimidating. I mean, when he puts mud around himself, just like making mud walls or like a mud bricks on the ground to improve like mounting or mobility, it's basically more wall running than anything else. But it's not by much. It's not by much in terms of how difficult this monster is. So just watch out for the mud, and these 3 mud boys are like, they're forgettable. I'm sorry to say this, Bareth, but you're pretty forgettable in the new world because of how badly Capcom butchered you. So, moving away from sad mud, we're going into another variant of a Bishaten known as the Blood Orange Bishaten. And instead of fruit, he throws pine cones at you. Inflamed pine cones. Another fun monster. Very fire afflictive, especially. Fire Blight and Blood Blight as an afflicted. And very fun. Likes to... He's 100% all about the pine cones. If you look at one of my old thumbnails, I drew him making them look like the Joker. Like throwing like freaking pine cone bombs at you. Because he's crazy with the bombs. With the pine cones. The Fire Breath is still bad. The same mobility as Bishaten, only stronger. I would say more HP, more damage than regular Bishaten. And is slightly harder, especially. When he starts throwing all of those pine cones around, when he smashes 2 on the ground and like fires them off as like a there's more range when he does that, when the fire just goes right towards you, like an explosive range, basically. But overall, fun hunt. Just not... You can't take his pine cones like you can with Bishaten's fruit, making him a little more harder. But, yeah. Another monster I used specifically to grind for AR. But, heavily enjoyable. Heavily enjoyable fight. I very much like the Bishatens in this game. I feel like they fit quite well. As good little startups to like the bigger hunts. Aurora Canth, or Aurora Subnacanth, basically. An ice monster. An ice monster variant of the Subnacanth, who doesn't have the sleep potential, but has a lot of ice along with it, basically. A lot of icy wind. And has a ice nova as well, especially. This is one of those instances where Ice Blight becomes even more of a threat when you're going up in the rankings of Monster Hunter, of Sunbreak or Rise, especially since Aurora Canth. I know I say Rise or Sunbreak a lot, but since they're both since Sunbreak is an expansion of one over the other, I am gonna consider them both as one game, even though one's an expansion and the other is like a base game. So. This tier list in its entirety is if you have both games together. So just take the monsters that are not in Sunbreak and just put them in the same tier, basically, as they are here on this list. And just take that as a grain of salt for you if you only have Rise. But yeah, Aurora Canth has a lot of ice moves, a lot of somersaults, a lot of like acrobatics in the water. Less of the versatility in terms of like sleep or blast or any other like blighted attacks in comparison to regular Subnacanth, but does much more damage, especially as an afflicted. And the Novas can hit rank up damage as well if you're not careful. You could easily lose a feint if you're not careful of the Ice Novas. But when she spins or somersaults, really be careful. Lock or counter, and you're good to go. More mobile and probably more aggressive than Subnacanth, but not by much. Peanut Butter finds Aurora Canth to be pretty annoying in comparison to the original Subnacanth. Her favorite fish in this game. But yeah. Fire. I just recommend fire for this fight, but nothing too short of a decent aggressive monster. So, most phallic monster in the New World, by far, which is Kezu. Yeah. Kezu is one of those situations where he's not just gross to look at, but but is quite deadly on the battlefield as well. Katana mentioned that Kezu got some new moves going into the new world with some moves he got from Frontier. Likes to, he extends his neck and slams it on the ground and spreads it across. That's easily blood-blightable. Paralysis is a bigger problem, especially the screams can disorient you even worse than the precursors, the prerequisites. Thunder Blight, another problem. Stun resistance is a big factor as well. But if you are not careful with the earplugs or with how Kezu operates, he could surprise you. He could surprise you outside of his veiny, phallic-y nature. But I'm glad to see Kezu in the new world. I feel like his placing here is fitting, especially with the map. But yeah, just be careful and be sure to bring an extra set of earplugs because nobody wants to hear this thing scream. Shut it up so you can knock it down with your very powerful weapons. And yeah, let's move on to round out. Let's move on to round out our D tier. And that is Basarios. Basarios, another good addition to the new world, honestly. I feel like Basarios, in comparison to the old gen, is definitely harder, honestly. I think you have to have either white or purple sharpness on your weapon to make sure your weapon does not deflect, I think. I had to use a lot of Mind's Eye to deal with him, especially when you're breaking his rocks. He has a good lieu of new moves as well. With he burrows in the ground and runs at you like a sand shark with his rocks out in tow. Whew. Boy, does he put some aggressive nature into him going into the new world. Fireballs are still a problem. His questionable fire beam, that's not as precise as Gravios's, can still hurt you. Fire, let's see. There's also poison. I think it's venom too. I think it's poison, and I think he also has sleep. I don't remember, but I do recall him having 3 different afflictions. 4 if you count his afflicted form, basically. His statuses that he puts onto you. But Basarios likes to move his raid around. Tremor resistance especially is necessary. Stun resistance, always a must for these early monsters. Earplugs, essentially. Or try to predict his roars and counter. Otherwise, make sure you have a water weapon. And you're good to go, honestly. Very good for mining resources, especially on his back. I feel like Basarios is even more harder because of the mountain mechanic. So, yeah, use the environment to your advantage. And Basarios is not that hard. Not that hard at all. Now then. There's only one monster in the line tier. The line tier. From medium, from the easy echelon to the medium echelon. Intermediate. And that's Narwa, the Thunder Serpent. Why is Narwa in the line tier? How about because Narwa is only in Rise and not in Sunbreak? Once you go into Sunbreak, Narwa, the All-Mother, takes her place. She's nowhere to be seen. She's nowhere to be seen in Sunbreak. Her All-Mother form takes over. That's as simple as that, honestly. Thunder Blight especially. She also has a Nova. A few other moves, especially in her arena, you have to be careful of. But the overlying theme is survive or you get blasted by her lightning, basically. Now, she's not that hard, honestly. She's fairly easy. As an elder, she is harder than the other monsters listed here, but not by much. Actually, another reason for this is because I can't put her as easy or put her as, like, intermediate. I mean, if you're going into Rise, and Rise is all you have and not Sunbreak, she'd probably be right here. But alas, if you have Rise and Sunbreak, she's right here in the on the line, basically. But take advantage of the environment is the best way to describe how to fight this thing. Otherwise, be mindful of her moves, as they could definitely tap you. Wire bugging the wrong way, especially, can cause you to be juggled and easily just knocked out. So it's easy to make a lot of mistakes with Narwa, but it's also not that hard to kill her either in the game. So you just need to be mindful of her moves, and you need to use the environment to your advantage, especially the monster that comes into her arena. Use that especially to your advantage. Use everything in your power to take down. Narwa, the Thunder Serpent, to rise from Rise and go into Sunbreak. Yeah. All right. Intermediate level. For this. Now, I honestly was torn as to where Rathian should go. Rathian's steamrolling is still by far one of the most annoying moves in her kit throughout the franchise. And her poison is still as annoying as before. Her moves are still very annoying, but this is just one of those wyverns you have to fight in the early game to go into the late game. And as an afflicted Rathian, just like the other poison monsters, is dish out more DPS when blood blighted and poisoned, so you can heal more than you can lose when you're poisoned. And that's basically it. Fire blight is another problem if you don't have good fire resistant armor. You can flash her out of the sky quite readily. She's not that bad. So you could put her like here for all I care, but no, I don't think she's that bad. I feel like people kind of blow her up a little more so because of her ability to steamroll. And that's like rampaging or like running into you like 3 times, maybe even 4 or 5 times when enraged. So yeah, take your salt and clean out the eyes of the salt and actually analyze the monster. And you'll see that she's actually not as bad as you think. Not enjoyable to hunt, but not that hard. Shogun Shantar. A fun addition to the game. I'm happy that they brought these 2 crustaceans back, both Daimyo and Shogun. But look at how far apart they are, and for good reason. Bloodblight being afflicted, being brought back, bleeding, being brought back into Sunbreak, bleed, and Bloodblight especially with this guy. They nerfed bleeding quite readily, which is one of the reasons why Shogun is here. Very aggressive, and could easily surprise you. And he could go here if you're not careful. But yeah, you can crouch down for less than 5 seconds to get rid of bleeding. And the Blood Blight is not that bad as long as you know when to strike. I don't know if they kept the same mechanics as in the old world with his claws. If you break both of his 2 claws here, he stays berserk, but the damage he does is less than without. But he shreds. He shreds through your armor if you don't have good upgraded gear. And the Bear Hug especially can do a lot of damage. I was torn between this and this initially in like my earlier lists, as a matter of fact. I'll put up the older lists at the end of the video, but they were to myself. But yeah, a lot of them were hot takes. Probably hot takes here as well. But again, my opinion. It's just my opinion here, and nothing more. All right, next on my list, Rakna Kadaki. A discount Nursilla, in my opinion. A discount Nursilla. Fire-based, uses her children to attack you especially. Webbing being a problem brought back from for you, but the fire especially. Breaking her parts is very easy. When she clumps all of her children into like one big sack at the back of her and like slams it on you, it does a lot of damage. The fire she excretes from her body especially is... You need to have guard up. You need to have guard up to deal with a lot of that. And a lot of her fire can easily surprise you and can knock you out as an afflicted. And there's chances where you can't even actually afflict enough damage to get rid of the Curios that possess her body. So you have to be pretty quick with her. Otherwise, she'll Nova more than once, probably like 5 times per hunt as an afflicted. Otherwise, yeah, not that bad, not that hard. A pretty fun fight overall, but not one I'd love to do more than 10 times per go. So, yeah, that's just as simple as that. Yeah. Now, Tigrex. Yeah. Now, Capcom copying pasting monsters from other games. Not every single monster was affected badly by this. Tigrex is still a really good, solid monster, honestly. A good, solid monster overall. Tigrex is my bitch, basically. I have never had trouble with Tigrex. Even as an afflicted, I've never had trouble with them. I, to this day, feel that Greatsword against Tigrex is a 90-10 matchup. A very easy matchup for anyone using Greatsword. Longsword especially can deal with him quite readily. Not just because Longsword's broken, but Tigrex's moves are very telegraphed. The Roar could still knock you over if you're not careful. But if you counter all of his moves quite readily and do enough damage, you could easily knock him out quickly. The soft head on him, easily breakable, just like in the other games. His weakness is his head. It's soft. His head is soft. You can easily break it. And you can just land hits there throughout the hunt, and you'd probably go in with like a 5-minute hunt against him. Maybe not as an afflicted, but Tigrex overall, fun monster to hunt, but definitely one of the easier flying wyverns moving forward. I do hope they change that moving forward with like other variants. Quote unquote Molten Tigrex. Can we have that monster back in the newer games, please? I'd love to have him back. He's a very, very much a fan favorite monster. I hope they bring him back. Now, next to him is going to be Nargacuga. Yeah, Nargacuga got a nerf from Iceborne to Rise, in the sense that Bleed was removed until Sunbreak, and even as a G rank monster going into Sunbreak, Bleed was not really reincorporated into his kit, which is kind of disappointing to me, to be honest. Nargacuga got some other forms of buffs here and there in terms of like mobility and like speed. Especially speed. You could easily be caught off guard in terms of like where he swipes and when he lunges at you. The tail is still probably far one of the most dangerous parts of Nargacuga's kit. That's never going to change. But always remember that you can't pitfall him until he's enraged. Otherwise, once he's enraged, pitfall him or shock trap him and keep him in place. Sonic bombs to disorient to make him angrier so you could put him into pitfall traps. But, yeah. A thunder weapon, no problem. And, yeah, the talons... Well, not the talons, the wings. The wings, that you could, like, you can hit the wings. Sometimes they'll deflect depending on the sharpness. But, yeah, overall, another solid monster, but could be annoying if you can't actually keep up with his patterns. So... exert some caution, especially. Even if he's nerfed, he's not by much. Alright, now for some of the newer monsters. One of the three. Garen Galm of Sunbreak. Garen Galm. Yeah. He's fun to hunt, I will say. When he's enraged, one side is fire, another side is water. You can get blast blight, you can get water blighted, you can get fire blighted. He also has a nova as well that he does when he smashes the ground and like creates a giant explosion from a giant hot rock. Even more so implemented when afflicted as well. And when he novas, especially with that move, it's a one tap. Unless you're really, really heavy geared. Like Divine Blessing, Defiance, and Guts. Something like that. For a good example. I'm sure there's more to it, but yeah. You could break his parts. You could break apart his arms to get rid of possibly the fire and the water factor even sooner. Exhaust him to get rid of it especially. It's also implemented onto his face later in the hunt when he's angry. Otherwise, he likes to throw his weight around. He likes to slam at you. He likes to... he especially likes to definitely just run into you. A definite guardian of the forest type deal, especially. So, the environment and his arms. Take that into account. Break him. Tire him out. And you got yourself a good fight. His gear is really good too, especially. So take it. Do grind this monster out if you really want to get farther into Sunbreak before the end game. Mizut Sune. Mizut Sune. Yeah. Mizut Sune. Yeah. More annoying in this game than in GU, but I'm happy that they implemented this monster into the new world as a primary monster. He is still a problem with his bubbles, water, likes to skid on the water especially. Added more annoying variations to the water gun that it does. Slides with the water, making it a spread shot especially, the bubbles even more so. Not as bad as they were at GU. They definitely nerfed the bubbles slightly. But overall a solid monster to fight. But one you have to be careful of, especially as an afflicted. As long as you know how to deal with the mobility factor. If you can catch her, then you can land as many hits as possible. If you can't, then you're going to be overwhelmed pretty quickly. You're basically hunting in the bath. And if you can't pick up the bar of soap, you're going to be slipping all over the place. So, fun hunt until it's not. Just make sure that you don't let Mizutsune play its game. Make it play your game. Simple as that. Now to round out the lower intermediate side of things, and that is Rajang. Disappointing, Capcom. Disappointing. Why would you butcher Rajang so badly? If you played base Rise, I'm gonna ask you an honest question. Did you feel any form of intimidation fighting Rajang for the first time in Rise? Any at all? I'll sit and wait. Wait time over. Yeah. They butchered his moves. Very much so. None of what Rajang can do in Rise has ever been a problem at all. Once I got my first set of high-ranking gear, Rajang was not a problem. A lot of his moves did not damage. A lot of his moves are not as intimidating as before. And there's not much... Rajang's basically a shell of its former self, as far as it goes. I mean, Rajang's supposed to be, like, up here. Or, like, at the very bottom of here. But, boy, did they butcher him hard. He does not feel as intimidating as he was in the earlier games. It's sad, honestly. And then when you brought him into, like, when you hunt him in, like, Sunbreak, they didn't really do much to him in there, either. Even as an afflicted, even as that and Sunbreak normally, he's just a weird monkey. A lot of his moves are weirder than they usually are, basically. Lift the ground, roll onto you. A bunch of punching moves, especially. He's got Blongunga's lunge punch, especially. Otherwise, the same rinse and repeat moves he's had in like the other games as well, especially. His slam doesn't kill you, but doesn't allow you to wire bug away, especially as a like enraged state. I mean, as an afflicted, his enraged state is slightly better, but nowhere near as intimidating as he was in Iceborne. I'm just gonna say that. I guess they listened to their fans too much as far as how bad Rajang was in Iceborne, but he's supposed to be that way. He's supposed to be hard. In this game, he's just too easy. Hopefully they restore him to his former glory in the next game. Now, B+. Starting off with Bariath. I'm going to be honest. I used to hate Bariath. I used to hate him, like, a lot. Very annoying monster. Loves to move around. Loves to jump. Loves to go one place to the next. Skidding across the field like it's an ice skating rink. It's insane. It's insane how annoying this monster is, and how annoying he is in the new world in comparison to GU in the old world. After playing some of the old world and comparing him to the new world, I realized long ago that my hatred for Bariath only extends to the new world. If you hunt him in like the old world, he's not that hard. But in new world, he's just mobile after mobile after mobile, jump, 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 slam, slam, slam. Not much of the ice cycloning, not much of the pouncing. He's just movement all over the place. He's nothing but mobility. He's worse than Nargacuga in terms of mobility. It's like there's not much rhyme or reason to his moves. The weakness is still there when breaking his wings, causing him to skid and slide like he's about to trip or something, giving you enough time to actually hit him. But they kind of remove that weakness slightly, but not by much. A good fire weapon maybe, and good prediction of where he's going to jump next. And yeah, Bariath being the bottom of B+ makes sense, honestly. But yeah, I don't like how they made him in this game. Now, this list is not entirely on like or dislike in terms of how they are. It's basically on how hard or easy they are in terms of how they function in the game. Again, all opinion based. So, Lunagarin. What a beaut. One of my favorite fanged wyverns in the New World. Honestly, he brings out the werewolf in me, especially. When he transforms into his werewolf state, he's like a discount Zinogre a little bit because of how weak he is. But boy does he do a lot of damage. His aggressive side, especially when afflicted, he could take you for a loop, especially since his range is deceiving. Even in his werewolf state, when he's like on his hind legs, he has a quad state and a hind state, where he's on 2 legs or 4 legs, basically. So, a lot of Ice Blight with him, but is very aggressive. As an afflicted, he is very, very aggressive, especially in that one mission before the final boss, before one of the bosses. Yeah, he'll surprise you. Lunagarin will surprise you, but overall, just some studying of his movements, and he's not that bad. The ice layering he gives himself is breakable as well. So yeah, have fun with this werewolf, because he'll give you a little bit of a challenge, but not by much. More of a mid-game monster than a late game, especially as an afflicted. All right, yeah. Magmudrin, or Magma Almudrin. Now, this monster I hate. This monster I hate. And not in saying I hate hunting him, but oh my god, was was he a waste of potential, a waste of space in this game. Give us Agnactor. We had Uruktors in the lava caverns. Giving us Agnactor was too much to ask for, so he decides to like clone Almudryn and give him like a lava form. He's basically a copy and paste version of Almudryn, but instead swaps the mud out for lava. And he's got a lava nova too, but it's not like, I mean, it can kill you if you're not careful. And if you don't have a good fire resistant gear, the fists that he makes from his tail can also kill you. But oh my god, he has no place here. The Mudryns have no place in the new world when you come from the old world. Honestly, I can go on and on about why I dislike this monster, but overall, bring a water or ice weapon handy, and he's not that much of a problem. He'll rush you down, especially. His tail is the biggest problem of him. Can also be cut off like Almudryn's, like a chip of him can be cut off. The lava is avoidable. The fire res especially can be used in this situation as an afflicted. He's even more annoying with that stuff. And healing is even worse when you're dealing with him in his afflicted state. So I just have to say be careful with him. But you do you, I do me. But I hate him. If you like him, go ahead, have a ball with his Power Ranger-esque gear and his switch axe-like moves. But yeah, I'm not playing him any higher or lower. I feel like that's where he should be, right there. Pyre, Rachna, Kadaki is another waste of space. I mean, I understand what they were going for with them, but it's like you're adding paint to like a non-usable automobile. It just doesn't work, honestly. It's just another clone, basically, of a much better monster. We could have gotten like Nerscylla and Rachna together. That would have been a good like addition to the game. But alas, we get Pyre Rachna. But unlike Magmudryn, I do like Pyre Rachna. I like what they were doing with them. Same tactic as regular Rachna with using her children, but the silk acts like a fuse for explosives. Pyre does fire and blast blight, and blood blight as an afflicted. Same weaknesses, more so on the water and ice side for this one. Probably more water, but yeah, a lot of blast implementation to it. But yeah, if you can counter the fuses on the silk, you're good to go. Otherwise, a lot of his moves are like a lot of Pyre's moves are kind of like the reverse of regular Rachna's, in the sense that that Pyre will rush you down with their butt as opposed to like the front side like Rachna does. And that can easily catch you off guard with Rise's camera, so be careful of that. Otherwise, water weapon and breaking all of the parts, as many parts as possible, and keeping them immobile is your best bet for Pyre Rachna. But yeah, let's get Nerscylla back, please. I would love to have Nerscylla back. Basilgeuse, still as annoying as ever. And there's not much to really say about this monster. Egg bombs, egg bombs, egg bombs, egg bombs. You really need to watch those egg mines that he lays, because that's the problem with Rise's camera, is that I'm always caught off guard from Basilgeuse's egg bombs because of where they are placed. I'm trying to charge my moves when I'm using Greatsword, and I get blown up from an egg that I miss because of the camera. And that could be your downfall. If you're too reckless, the egg bombs will just do chip damage, will scrap you. 100% just make you faint numerous times, especially as an afflicted. As an afflicted, Basilgeuse is even more annoying with their moves. And the fact that Blood Blight stops you from healing more so, it's like, what's the point? You need to be more cautious with those egg bombs, or try to use them to counter if you're using Greatsword or Longsword or Lance. But yeah. Yeah, Basilgeuse, I don't have much trouble with, but he's still very annoying, honestly. So just be careful. That's all I can really say. with Basilgues. Otherwise, a pretty solid monster as well. Now we go into another fanged beast that easily thrives in the New World, and that is Gos Harag, the Yeti. Katana's favorite Yeti as well, if I may add. Oh yeah, I debated between putting him here or here, but I feel like this is more appropriate. Very heavy damage, large in size, large and in charge. He has 2 modes when he's angry. He either uses dual blades, or he does sword and shield with his ice hands. Very deceptively slow, deceptively fast too. So trying to read his movements can actually be a crutch, can actually be a weakness. So you have to really time those the moves that he does. And all of his moves are heavy in damage, especially as an afflicted. Remember that I'm going to be referencing the afflicteds over and over and over and over again because that's a very key part into the hunts themselves in the game. So if you're annoyed by it, play the full game for yourself and you'll see what I mean. But yeah, very heavy both in like size and in like damage especially. And that can also work for you when you counter because you're doing double that damage, making the hunt last much less than it needs to. Breaking his blades when he forms the ice on his hands is also quintessential to the attacks, making him a little more easier to deal with. Otherwise, yeah, going into Sunbreak, they definitely gave him a buff, especially in size. So yeah, be cautious, or you'll end up like another well-done steak if you fight him, basically. Later in the game, he's not that bad. His afflicted form will still give you a run for your money if you're not careful. But yeah, keep ice resistance handy and a fire weapon when needed, especially. And be sure to break his parts. That will definitely help you in the long run. Now, what do we have here? The Rathalos. Yeah, our King of the Skies for a mascot of the franchise. Yeah, still very annoying even in this game. I feel like he's more annoying after Gen 2. But yeah, always in the air, fire being a problem. He can swipe with his tail like he does in World now, but it's more frequent. The fire is a lot more frequent. He napalms you while in the air especially. But yeah, the poison is like his secondary when he kicks you, but it's not that much, honestly. As an afflicted especially, it's hard to hit him in the air unless you flash him, but because he's like in the air more than 50% of the time, flashing him can also be a weakness because it reduces the likelihood of him falling when he's flashed in the air. So you really need to be careful with how you deal with him. But a dragon or lightning or a thunder weapon, and you're good to go. Basically, fire resistance, poison res, or just get some antidotes. Or if you're fighting his afflicted form, try to land as many good hits as possible to heal more so than get poisoned. And yeah, he's not that bad. Okay. Katana's favorite cactus, and a good showcase from Frontier into the New World, Espinus. Yeah. I hated hunting him. At the very beginning of Rise of Sunbreak, I hated hunting him. I still hate hunting him a little bit, but I know how to deal with him now, but I still think his fire is BS. It burns you, it poisons you, and paralyzes you all in one go. And you're blood blighted with his afflicted state. 4 status ailments he does. And 3 of them are in one package. You can block and counter to be sure you don't get hit by those afflictions. Those status afflictions, but boy is he heavy on the poison, especially. His ram could poison you, his tail could poison you, I think. A little bit. I know you can get poisoned by his spikes, but not as frequently as Rathian. But boy is he heavy with the venomous fire. You really need to be careful with that. But a good ice weapon, a good little form of telegraphing on his charges, stampedes, and he's not that bad. He's not that bad at all. His gear is really good. But yeah, I think that Espinus is a really good addition to the mainline games. He's a fan favorite of the Frontier community. I'm sure Katana can vouch for that one. If I'm wrong, you could tell me in the comments section. But yeah. Okay. Now, Apex Arceros. Now, there's a reason why I put Apex Arceros here, and that's because it can't be trapped like any other monster you see. When I think of Apex, I think of Monster Hunter 4U, and it's like an ultimate form of a monster who goes through the lines of frenzy, has to use a specific stone to hit him, otherwise your weapon's gonna deflect. His moves are more so easily can make you faint in 2 hits. That's not what I think of when I look at the Apexes of this game. Apex Arceros is basically discount Red Helm Arceros in GU. In GU with Red Helm, yeah, they definitely did more so with that with Apex, and that's when he's like throwing rocks in the air, when he's juggling you, when he's like shoveling his arms into the ground. He charges at you more. His roar is to disorient you. When he body slams or when he sits on you, it's an insta stun. And he runs and swipes. He also has a wind effect when he swipes specifically. But yeah, you can't trap him. You can't mount him. And yeah, you have to really get in there. DPS is your best friend with this fight. Otherwise, that's basically all there is to him. And he's actually the easiest Apex on this list. The easiest Apex of this list. So, next one is Apex Rathian. Discount Dread Queen is what Apex Rathian is. The frenzy poison that Dread Queen has is not in Sunbreak, but the venom factor is. The spikes that she leaves on the ground when she uses her tail are still prevalent. You can cut off the tail to stop that. A lot of her moves are similar to regular Rathians, except it's more poison and tail heavy. Otherwise, if you hunt a regular Rathian and you know how to fight her, and you go into Apex Rathian, you shouldn't have that much trouble with her, especially when it's like an investigation. But do be careful. Do be careful, because the poison, the venom that she does, will easily take all of your HP if you're not careful. So yeah. That's where I put Apex Rathian. Now, this next monster might be controversial, or might make people angry. But I'm going to put Velkhana here. Yes, another flagship monster that's from another game that's in the game of Sunbreak. Yeah, she was hype, but not by much. I mean, I like the Palamute skin that you get from her, and the hunt itself is still as annoying as I remember it, but they butchered her pretty hard. She has an ice nova to her. Her ice walls you can jump over with the wire bugs. Her tail doesn't do enough damage. But the tail is still probably far the most annoying part of her. Her ice breath doesn't do as much damage as it did in Iceborne. You can break free of the ice that sticks to the ground, stopping you from moving when you get too close. You can wire bug away from that. You don't get much time to break all of her parts because of the less HP she has. Same problem with Rajang, actually, is the fact that neither of them stay alive long enough for you to break all of their parts. So, yeah. I mean, her gear definitely, by far, one of the best greatsword variant armors in the game. Frostcraft is still very busted. So, you have nothing to lose fighting her, but you're not going to have a fun time with her. But the hunts are worth it. Very much so. A good fire weapon, a good dragon weapon maybe. They nerfed her tail more so when you cut it off. When she's in her ice form, she grows it back just to stab with, but when she's in her normal form, she can't use it like that. So, that's a plus for us, especially, who got annoyed with Velkhana. More notoriously during Iceborne's beta. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. Now, A- tier. A- tier. With Seething Basilgeuse. I'm surprised I did not go without fainting against him the first time in Rise Sunbreak. But, yeah. His problems are still there with his mutated eggs. It's worse than that of regular Basilgeuse, in the sense that, yeah, his mutated eggs are growing in the background. You can't see them because of how bad Sunbreak's camera is, and they'll blow you up. He has 2 Novas, 3 of them if you count when he's in the air. He's basically the Unabomber of the series, and boy does he hurt a lot, especially as an Afflicted. His tail, he could blast you with his tail with the eggs. He could wall you with eggs to make it so it's harder to approach. I feel like approaching is the hardest thing with the Basilgeuses in this game, but more so with Seething. So, do be careful of the fire. Fire res you really need. Stun resistance you really need. Armor especially is what you need. More defense, like Divine Blessing. Defiance is your best friend, especially. But yeah, do watch out for those eggs, or use them to your advantage to counter, and you're good to go. All right, another good addition. Katana's favorite dragonfly, the Astalos. I have to say, Astalos is a really fine addition to the game. I enjoyed hunting Astalos. Astalos has a mixture of it and its Bolt Reaver variant in the game. And I gotta say, he does fit into the game quite readily. I liked hunting him. He's very solid. He can paralyze you, stun you, thunderblight you. His range is better. As an Afflicted, he's more aggressive, rushes you down, making it harder for you to heal. A very good ice weapon will do you wonders. Stay away from his tail when it's in the ground, otherwise you're gonna get paralyzed or stunned, and the blast itself is gonna potentially kill you if you're not careful. But yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about Astalos as far as his moves go. Just be careful. And that's for a lot of monsters on this list, but it's heavily more so. Surigios. Yes, my favorite pinecone of Gen 4. And if any of you are calling him Steve, I don't care. I hate the name for Surigios. And Capcom has acknowledged that he's Steve. I don't like it, but he's a pinecone, basically. But a hard monster to be sure with the blood blight. And the bleeding, basically. Surigios is the king of bleed. The lord of bleed, if anything. But like I mentioned with Shogun, bleed is nerfed. So if you're far enough away from Surigios, just crouch for 5 seconds and you're basically healed from bleeding. A lot of Surigios' moves are similar to that of Azure Rathalos from Iceborne. So you really need to catch him out of the air. His legs are a big problem, especially when he dives in for kicks. That could do a lot of damage. So healing especially can be more warranted, but can also be risky because of how aggressive Surigios is. So do be careful. Woe betide the poor soul who is bleeding on the ground with blood blight against a Surigios, where pine cones are shot especially. Surigios can shoot pine cones or shards of himself into the ground, and if you go near them, you're bleeding, basically. It's a confirmed bleed. So, exert caution and plan out your form of attack when you're against them, especially. But if you're not careful, Surigios will stay in the air for a while. But not as much as Rathalos, but he's close. He's close in terms of how often he stays in the air. Now, Diablos. Yeah, Diablos be Diablos after all. Burrow into the ground, run you over. Burrow into the ground, run you over. Roar, roar, roar. Tail slam, 2 rocks hitting you. Thrust his horn to the ground, Merciless Horn being a primary problem. Sonic Bomb him out of the ground, and then flash him out. Flashes being less consistent in this game, making it even more of a risk than a reward. Ice Weapon especially is good for him. As an Afflicted, if you're not careful, he can rush you down even when healing. But outside of that, Diablos is still an aggressive Diablos. So, primary reason he's up here is for his aggression and high damage. Nothing more. I know I'm running down on this, but there really is not much to really say about Rathalos. Or Diablos. I don't know why my brain is turning off here, but there's not much to say about Diablos. Now, I feel like I can bring these two up without actually putting much deviation to them. But we got regular Gore and Chaotic. Frenzy is their primary function. Chaotic can continue, whereas regular Gore can just add up on the Frenzy to give you the negative aspect. All the Magallas play safe, and you have to play the aggressor. You can't play safe, because if you play safe, you're going to be afflicted with the negative side of Frenzy. And what you want is to do as much DPS as possible to get the positive side of Frenzy. That's what these two monsters do, and they do it quite well. Frenzy mode especially is a problem for Gore Magalla when he's against you, and Chaotic has 2 variants of that. So steer clear of those. But once you knock them out of the Frenzy, they are not that bad when you fight them. As Afflicteds, they're worse, because you're trying to break them out of their Afflicted states when they're stressed, and their Frenzy form. So you have to do a lot of DPS. DPS, I feel like, is the primary problem with these guys when you're up against them. So, you have a good game plan, you can knock them down, or you have all of what you need in terms of utility, and you're good to go. If you're running a Frenzy build, this is probably going to be your worst matchup, because of the Frenzy factor. As long as you have like a good set of Null Berries on you, you're good to go, basically. Now, Malzeno. Yeah, hi there, Dracula. How's life? Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, you're not living. You're not living at all. You're still dead. The first possessor of the Quiros, being Malzeno. Dragon Blight and Blood Blight are all he does. And the tail attacks are just as annoying as the predecessor of Velkhana. The fact that he can teleport and the fact that he can Dragon Blight you and slam you and rush you down with teleporting is what makes him a very fierce contender. And the pin especially can make him annoying too. But overall, the fight goes as the fight goes, and a lot of his parts become easier to break when the Quiros start to show up on his body. The damage racks up, and that is why Malzeno is no higher than A- in terms of how powerful he gets. Right next to him is going to be the former final boss of this game, Geismagor. What's there to say about this Archdemon? How about the fact that he eats Quiros? He can control them. The Quiros listen to him, do whatever they tell him to. First phase of the fight, you're breaking parts off of him. forcing him to suck him into himself, basically, to do a lot more damage. You could easily break all those parts, as long as you have a good part-breaking build. He does Fire Blight. I don't know if he Blood Blights you. I know I grinded him, but it's been a while since I've hunted him. But I know he Blood Blights you. Or I know he Fire Blights you. So be careful of that. His final phase is hard. Because of, like, when he's climbing up to do a very powerful attack, you have to shoot all of the Kuro cores on him to knock him down. And you'd think that'd be easy, if not for the fact that he shoots Kuros at you when he's climbing. It makes it harder to actually take him out. Now, while that is the case, it's not the end. There's a lot to him than meets the eye, and you can easily fight him as well as take him, as long as you have a well-equipped set. I mean, any of you like going into it like the first time, I'd probably recommend a lifesteal build alongside Partbreaker, and you're good to go. His set is good too if you know what you're doing with it. Overall, his fight is pretty fun. I definitely would recommend someone to hunt him, but just be careful and just follow instructions as far as like using the environment, and as far as like his behavior is concerned. You're good to go. You have a good, decent fight. Now, Zinogre. Yes, Zinogre is higher than that of these guys, and boy does he put the aggression in aggression. The A in aggression. Especially as an afflicted. No, I have had lots of trouble with this guy. Slams like 3 to 5 times on the ground with his paws. He claws you. His thunder is even worse off. He has more range. When he slams on the ground, when he like body slams on the ground, he has a lightning effect, adding more range to the attack. It's just hard to land hits in on him. Hard to land anything on him. He's hard to approach, overall. Even more so than the Basilgeuse. As an afflicted, his damage is amplified even more. It feels almost as like I'm hunting Thunderlord Zinogre again, honestly. I like Zinogre, but boy is his fight. His fight is slightly overtuned, but not as overtuned as the others we're going to put on this list. But definitely pretty overtuned. A good ice weapon, a good game plan with like trying to keep him immobilized, and you're good to go. And as long as you can depower him quick enough and de-stress him quick enough as an afflicted, you're good to go. That's really all I can say to you about Zinogre. Otherwise, if you can't do that, you're going to get creamed. Just plain and simple. A good ice weapon and you're good to go. Now, I feel like I can mention these three all together because there's not really much to them as far as what you can do with them. But here's how I rank the first of them. Kushala, Chameleos, and Tiestra. Kushala is now back to his rightful form, right where he is supposed to be. Not a train wreck, not a busted monster of any kind. Very easy. He's supposed to be the easiest Elder Dragon, if not for Velkhana, but definitely the easiest of the three. Now, his winds are not as bad as they were before. He's more susceptible to poison now in comparison to what he was in Iceborne. And if you have Chameleos' gear before fighting him, he's nothing. He is easy. Flash him out of the air, his tornadoes, you can like avoid those. And if you're running full Defiance, his Dragon Winds don't affect you. You can easily get in with Defiance when it's activated. Otherwise, Dragon Blight is still a problem when he slams on the ground from the sky. He has a few combo moves here and there, but as long as you wire bug away at the right timing, you're good to go. Otherwise, you're going to get comboed and juggled. And do keep that in the back of your mind, because combos are what make these monsters hard, going up higher on this list. Now, Chameleos is pure venom. They nerfed him a little bit with his tongue, how it snatches items. Instead, it snatches pollen from the spirit birds that you collect throughout the map of the hunt. That could be a problem. If you knock him out and you can get your pollen back. If you can't, then he'll just keep stealing more pollen from you, making you weaker as a result. I recommend anti-Obras for the fight, especially in his stronger state. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that soon enough. But if you have anti-Obras on you and you use them, you don't get poisoned, like at all. Or if you have Tiestra's gear, you don't get poisoned at all or venomed, and you're good to go. He cloaks himself. If you break his parts, then you can see him when he's cloaked. I got close to predicting where he lands when he cloaks himself. Usually it's behind you, but sometimes that's not the case, so don't take my word for it. So, yeah. It's a tough one, I gotta say. Chameleos is a very solid Elder Dragon to fight. Not too hard, but not too either, honestly. So, the primary purpose here is the poison. And when he uses his poison blast, even if you're not poisoned, the damage is very high, especially. If you're poisoned and you have that damage, you may not have enough time to heal. So do keep an eye on your health. More so than anything, keep an eye on your health. Tiestra, a few lists ago, would have been here. But he's here because there's harder monsters out there. But back then, Tiestra was by far the hardest Elder Dragon in the game. And for good reason. He's got two forms. His fire form and his blast form. His fire form can easily deceive you. If he shoots his fire down at you, the chip damage can easily kill you. The blast damage can kill you. When he novas, it kills you. He rushes you down more so than he does in World, especially. And boy, does he rush you down. The stun factor on him is even worse than it was before. So stunning is easier with him. So you really need to carry stun resistance on you. Otherwise, you're going to easily get toppled by this monster. My word, does the fire and the blast add up to him. You run Kushal's gear, you have a decent time, but I don't think it's necessary. A good ice weapon, a good dragon weapon, and you're good to go for him. Avoid his novas, predict when he's going to do something. And yeah, his hitboxes are pretty easy. His blasts are more telegraphed. When he uses his powder, it's more telegraphed now. So I just recommend just trying to time them so you can counter them effectively, and you're good to go on that one. So when he starts aggroing to you, try to be on the defensive, because when he aggroes on you, you're not going to have time to heal. So that's really all I can truly say about this monster. His powder is still a threat. He's more aggressive. His fire is still a problem. Blast is still a problem. I once mistakenly thought him as like a incantation of like Kaiser Tiestra, but I was exaggerating. So, yeah. Okay. Ibushi of the Three Forgettable Serpents. I already talked about one of them. Ibushi you see in the game still. And boy, does he play lame. Definitely the lamest Elder Dragon in the game. By far. Both in design and hunt. He's like Tiestra with Wind and Dragon Blight, but it's even more so. You're going to have a hard time hitting him because he's always in the air. Use the environment to your advantage, especially. He's very much... He is a very lame fight. Always in the air. He hardly approaches. He's hard to get near because he always backs off to attack. But if you use the environment to your advantage, and you know his patterns, and if you shoot him out with the cannonballs around the field, as long as you're dishing out as much damage as possible using the environment and your weapon, and you're good to go with him. But what makes him harder than the other dragons listed here is by how lame he plays. It's by how he is in the hunt is why he's here and not lower. Otherwise, I would probably put him right, like I'd like hot takingly put him right here. but he is lame. I do not recommend hunting Ibushi. Ibushi alongside the Narwa variants, their armor is useless. Useless. Maybe you can find someone who can use those armors. I don't care. You could probably tell me something. You could probably tell me one good thing about them. But I've had no reason to use it. There's no slots on that set. There's no slots on their weapons either. Cool designs. That's probably all they're going for. But there's no point in hunting them except for like Elder Dragon Blood, like back in Rise before even these three monsters were available. Before Rise implemented these three Elder Dragons, this was the only monster alongside Narwa that gives you Elder Dragon Blood. And boy, was that a nightmare, especially in the rampages. But yeah, environment. That's all you really need for them, and that's it. Alright, to round out A- tier. Magdamello. Yeah. You know, remember when I said that I used to hate Barriath, and I no longer do? Yeah. That's because all of my hatred went into this. Went to this pussycat. I hate Magdamello. I hate his design. I hate his hunt. I hate everything about him, honestly. Nobody else can see it but me. I hate this monster. When I see him, I see red. The kind of red that makes me want to tear him to pieces. He doesn't let you heal. His Hellfire is gimmicky at best, even as a hunting tool, as a set. Water is his weakness. He will 100% just pile drive you until you're dead. You have no room to heal at all. His afflicted form is absolutely no fun to hunt. Oh my god, I could go into heavy rants about this fucking monster. But break his blades on his arms. Break his tail, break his fangs. And watch out for his grab. He has a priority grab that throws you from his mouth to the air to the point of where he starts to blast you in the air. He blasts you with hellfire balls from his tail. He lunges at you with his tail. He attacks you numerous ways that you can count. And then his final hurrah is using all of his malice and hellfire to like pile drive you and explode. Oh my god. I don't care if any of you disagree with my opinion on this monster. In fact, a lot of hot takes that I had on him was putting him here or here because of how hard he was to fight. Even in the beta, I did not have fun hunting him. I hated it. I hated it more than Volcana, and that's actually saying something. Oh my god. Whew. Okay, A+ tier. Starting off our list with Shigaru Magala. Yes, I love the Magalas. I'm happy that they're in the new world. And yeah, Shigaru will give you a run for your money if you're never careful, is the thing. When Shigaru blasts you, you can't wire bug away. You have to have guard up, or you have to super armor it, or super evade it with Superman dodge. Same playstyle as the regular Magalas, in the sense that he plays passive while inflicting as much frenzy to you as possible. And as passive as he is, it's harder to get in because he likes to back off. His slams can knock you out, disorient you. His roars disorient you. A lot of his moves will disorient you or confuse you. And because of that, you could easily get the negative version of Frenzy. But as long as you stick to your game plan and you do as much damage as possible, Frenzy will not be a problem. But the heavy damage will. So that's why he's A+. Now, Lucent Nargacuga. Lucent Nargacuga. Yeah, that's another fun variant of Nargacuga. Heavy on poison, cloaks himself. But unlike Chameleos, the cloaking is not finite. You can still lock onto him when he's cloaked, making him easier to spot. Does much more damage than regular Nargacuga. The poison ranks up damage even more so. And the tail is even more of a threat. Is a much more deadly tool with the poison, making him very, very aggressive and versatile. So, do exert caution. And when he slams his tail and moves his tail around, the spikes fly all over the place, and when they hit you, you get poisoned. And he also has another tail spike effect where it makes it rain poison. So, do be careful of that too. You have poison resistance, venom resistance, you're good to go, basically, with this monster. But his gear is worth it if you really want some good bowgun gear back early in the game. But I don't do mix sets, so what do I know? I do know that Lucent was a fun hunt, and always will be. So take that as you will. Forlorn Arena can be very tough, but I know you can do it. Apex Mizutsune. Oh boy. Boy, do these deviant monsters like to return in some form. Discount Soul Seer Mizutsune is what Apex Mizutsune is. Both water and fire elemented, as well as bubbles. And I don't think they have the same properties as Soul Seer in terms of bubbles, but yeah. More aggressive, more damage, more HP. Can't be mounted, can't be trapped. You can slam them into walls using the wire bugs, but that's pretty much it. You're not gonna have much. You're not gonna have much leg room to actually try to immobilize them, unless you're paralyzing or you're trying to stun, basically, or knock them over. You have to pray you have those, otherwise the mobility factor will easily overwhelm you. Otherwise, he functions just like regular Mizutsune, but more aggressive and has more moves. Alongside a disorienting roar. Now then. Furious Rajan. Yeah. Quite the downgrade, I have to say. From one weird monkey to another weird monkey. As an afflicted, he feels a little more complete, but not by much. The damage factor is very strong, more aggressive, as per his name. Has a rush feature in terms of like lightning. If he misses his grab, his priority grab on you, he'll grab a giant boulder from the ground and throw it at you. His blasts are even more so when he's tired. You can't bind him with silk because he'll tear it off. You can't shock trap him in a certain way because he'll break the shock trap. Same goes for like pitfalls. It's a similar function to Rajang regularly, but it's different slightly. So immobilizing Furious Rajang is harder than regular Rajang. So exert caution, bring a good ice weapon, aim for his head, and you're good to go. His arms, when red, will easily deflect all of your moves, so do be careful there. Woe betide the poor soul who underestimates any of these Rajangs, even though they've been nerfed pretty bad. And his gear is worth it. Intrepid Heart is a really good skill to have when you're fighting Furious Rajang, or when you're using his gear. Furious as well is a good tool for dual blade users. So another thing to take into account. If I'm getting this wrong, feel free to let me know in the comments section. But my first impression when I saw his gear was it was more dual blade dependent. So I'm down for some friendly corrections if need be. But yeah, just another weird monkey. I do hope they make them hard again in the later game. In another game, that is. So, yeah. There isn't much to mention about some of these monsters, so a lot of rundowns. But if I miss anything, put it in the comment section of my video, and I'll address it. So, yeah. Let us go about the Metal Wraths. Goldakan and Rathatin. I'm sticking with those names. They are funny as hell, and it's a pack thing. If you're in the Wolfblood Brotherhood, we call the Metal Wraths Rathatin and Goldakan. Yeah. Oh boy. Boy, did they bring him back from Iceborne with a vengeance. Their flames get worse when they're enraged and when they're glowing. Their blue flames can easily one-shot you if you're not careful, especially when they're like heavily concentrated fireballs that do double hits. So if you wirebug away, you're gonna get hit again. I don't think you can block it either unless you have guard up. Goldacan's poison is even more versatile alongside the flames, making it harder to deal with her. Her tail is worse to deal with, especially since it deflects weaker sharpnesses below purple sharpness. And Silver Wrath is basically in the air a lot, but has a lot of fire moves underneath his belt, a lot of fire combo moves, especially for any unsuspecting hunter, and is hardly on the ground, like ever. But once you depower them both, they're not that hard. They're not that much of a threat. Thunder for Goldrathian and water for Goldacan and water for Rathatin, and you're good to go. That's really all you need, alongside like flash bombs and knowing your environment, basically, and you're good to go. That's really all you need. Just pay attention. Just pay attention is all you need to do for this. Flaming Espinus. Yeah. Orange Espy, as Katana calls him. He's a fun hunt. I actually like him over regular Espinus. And they traded his paralysis in his fireballs, his venomous fireballs, for defense down. I could deal with defense down just fine. And defense down can be healed with an adamant seed, and you're good to go. He has one specific Nova where he charges a fireball and slams it on the ground, causing a giant explosion, which can easily kill you if you don't have good gear, or if you don't have good skills. A lot of his fireballs do like multiple hits and have more range when they detonate, so be careful of those. All of his flames will defense down you and poison you. And yeah, later in the fight, after he does his Nova that blows up the ground with his concentrated fireball, he'll fire another fireball at you that's even more concentrated and do more damage. But when he's in his disadvantaged state, he stays in his disadvantaged state. So get as much stunning, much paralysis, as trapping as possible, and you'll be fine. I know I'm like spazzing out here and there. It's just because my brain is like operating at like 25 miles per hour. But yeah, that's another thing to take into account with Flaming Espy. But a water weapon will do it, as long with like a lot of good utility. But I don't think flaming is that bad in comparison to the others on this list. Now, a favorite of mine, Violet Mizutsune. Violet Mizutsune was definitely one of my favorite. Is definitely one of my top. It's definitely top 3 in my favorite boss fights in this game. A rare species of Mizutsune that is all fire. Oil for the water element of them, and the fire on the ground that Violet does has a element down effect. Something I have not seen or heard of before since like the newer games coming out. So element down, you get fire blighted. And boy does Violet Mizutsune put you in a loop. Also has a very strong area of effect damage with a giant oily bubble that, if you're not careful, will easily detonate and kill you. The fact that Violet Mizutsune is very versatile is what makes it even worse of a fight, but not a tough one or a bad one, honestly. Tough, yes, but hard, but not unbeatable. Once you stop them from moving, they stop moving for sure. The trapping and the immobilizing factor is what you really need to do for Violet. Otherwise, you give them too much room and the fire will easily overtake you. Set is worth it. The set for Violet Mizutsune is very much worth it. So, take it for what you will. I like Violet's fight. I would definitely love to do that again. Hopefully they bring him back into the newer games. Now, rounding out our forgettable serpents here. Narwa the All-Mother. Yeah. Remember when I said that Ibushi's fighting style is lame? Narwa's is even worse. There was one area of effect attack that she does with the Dragonators that really messed up my pack members. I found out a way around it, but if you don't find a way around it, it's a one-tap, and it juggles you when you're wire-bunging away. You want to get to the center after being hit once, or find an opening in between so that you don't get hit by the Dragonator, basically. But overall, it's just like Narwa in the sense that you have to take advantage of the environment. Otherwise, Dragon and Thunderblight are Narwa's primary problems. High HP, high attack power, always in the air. But as long as you're using the environments to your advantage as well as doing as much damage as possible, you're good to go. You're good to go with Narwa. But just like I mentioned for Ibushi's armor, I do not recommend anyone going for Narwa's armor. Unless you can find a good use for it, but I think hunting the three of them are just absolutely not worth it. Not worth it at all, in my opinion. You're better off hunting some other monsters on this list if you want a good challenge and a good hunt in general. Well, another verse, same as the first. So, let's go over the Risen Trio here. As far as Tiestra, Chameleos, and Risen Kushala go. The Risen Elder Dragons as they go. So, Risen Kushala has a couple of new moves. A bunch of new moves at that. A couple of good combo moves. More range on the wind power that he does, especially when he slams his paws to the ground, causing more wind to attack. You can't counter because it's a multi-hit. Same goes for his dragon slams when he's slamming from the sky to the ground. More of a radius, more Dragon Blight, especially. The wind is still something you can deal with Dragon Blight, or with Defiance, I mean. But yeah, as long as you depower his second phase, you're good to go. But Risen's gear is actually quite worth it with Wind Mantle, dealing with wire bugs, as gimmicky as it is. But yeah, I feel like the hunt is worth it, overall. Risen Chameleos is heavy on poison, like very, 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 very heavy on poison. I consider Risen Chameleos the Lord of Poison. You want the strongest poison weapon, you want it from Chameleos. You want the strongest poison monster in the game, it's Chameleos. Risen Chameleos especially. Everything he does in his Risen state and his secondary form, or his secondary state, is done twofold, especially. In his secondary form, his poison, he can condense it and then use his tail to slam it and cause an explosion, causing more poison damage. And the damage itself accumulates as far as poison goes, making it harder to heal. I don't think he no longer steals pollen when he uses his tongue, but he will try to draw you in with his tongue, making it easier to slam you. And he slams like 3 times, 2 to 3 times when he's angry. The poison accumulates and he can be spread all across the battlefield. He'll ambush you with the poison blasts, so you have to really know where he appears, or break his parts as quickly as possible. A good fire weapon will do you nicely, as well as like Tiestra's Blessing, but Risen Chameleos is not something to sneeze at. He is still a very hard Risen monster in comparison to Kushala. And Risen Tiestra is harder than both of them combined, because the secondary form he achieves with his Risen state makes both his fire and his blast states even worse. Much worse. Especially since the fire effect is spread throughout. His range is even worse. His damage is worse. The fire, his blast effect is even worse. It's more damage, more blast blight, making it harder to heal. His aggressive nature and damage especially make it harder for you to heal or land hits. But always avoid his Nova. But as long as you depower all of their Risen forms, you should be fine against them. But a rookie mistake is using traps. And remember, Elder Dragons cannot be trapped. The Magalas, Chaotic and Gore can, but not Risen Shigaru. Not Shigaru. Shigaru cannot be trapped. Regular Magalas can be trapped. So take that into account as well. Alright. We're on the S tier echelon. The hardest monsters in the game. Going for the top 8. The 8 monsters left on this list. So, we got top 10 right here. 10 and 9 respectively. Now, as far as the others are concerned here, yeah. Apex Diablos. Discount Bloodbath is what he is. Roar, then rush you. Merciless Horn, lot of horn attacks especially. His tail can slam out 3 rocks instead of 1. When he's really angry, he will burrow into the ground, jump up, and release smoke at you. A steam effect similar to Bloodbath's, but weaker. But also spontaneous. He will rush you down until he erupts again, basically. Basically all the moves that Bloodbath can do, but weaker. A good reminiscent tool from Bloodbath to Apex Diablos. Definitely my favorite Apex to hunt in the game, honestly. I actually enjoy hunting Apex Diablos. Very fun. I just wish they did more with the Apexes. That's my only gripe with them. They're just there for a challenge. And none are more challenging than Apex Rathalos. Which is a lie, by the way, but Apex Rathalos, the most boring iteration of Rathalos in the New World. The most boring of the New World versions of the Wrath. Dread King rivals it in form of boredom, especially in terms of how it fights. Always in the air. Like 90% of the time it's in the air. You have to flash it to take it down. And you run out of flashes because you have 5 of them. And the flashes, the stun effect gets weaker every time you use it. So you have to really be careful. You need to ground him as much as possible. His fire is worse. His area of effect with his fireballs are on par with Dread King's. He is not a fun fight at all. Apex Rathalos is not fun at all. Poison for his legs, just like regular Wrath. His fire is a lot more worse. His fire area of effect is stronger, harder to approach. And he has a blast effect with he also has a fireball effect or like a flare effect on the ground with his fire snap. His fire bite. So be careful of that, especially because it's a double hit and it could kill you when you're off guard. When you're off your guard, especially. So, yeah. Not a fun fight. And you want to know another monster that's not that fun either? Scorned Magdamello. Another monster I absolutely hate. Scorned Magdamello reminds me of Frontier. And it's like, oh my god, this monster is not BS enough to be in Frontier. So instead of putting him in Frontier, we're just going to put him in Sunbreak, where everybody can suffer. That's basically what Scorned is. Less HP from regular Magdamello, but he's more fierce, more aggressive, more combo heavy than regular Magdamello, which sucks. But he also has a secondary phase where he inflicts Dragon Blade and Hellfire. He has 3 Tail Blasts, the third blast being a spread. He does a lot of Hellfire blasts with his claws on the ground. He will rush you down with his arm blades. Will bite you down, especially grab you down. There's no chill from Score Magdamello. He is aggressive from start to finish and will chase you until you're dead. You really need to be on your guard against him. Otherwise, you're going to lose. You're going to lose hard. He's not going to let you heal either. So you need to really really need to have a trap or a flash handy for him. Otherwise, you're going to lose. Guaranteed. Afflicted Scorned is even worse in that factor because he has more HP and more damage. So, yeah. I defy you to tell me one good reason why I should like the Magdamellos. Why I should enjoy their hunts. I'll wait. But not wait long enough. So, you can put that down in the comment section of this video. So, rounding out S tier is regular Valstrax. Call it a hot take if you will, but Valstrax is a very hard monster in the New World. They slowed him down from GU, but not by much. A lot of his moves are in the air and could easily be comboed into you. He has a lot of rushdown moves, making it harder to approach. His wing talons are very, very long, making it harder to approach. His ambush is even more deadly than it was before. And yeah, the Dragon Blight is off the scale. So, you really need to be careful with this monster. I have yet to kill him solo in the game, honestly. I've killed Scorned solo. I've done the Apexes solo, but not this one. No. Not Crimson Glow. And I honestly don't want to hunt him again. I did not have fun with his later variant. I probably alluded to it, but it doesn't matter since there's only 5 monsters left to really tally here. So, yeah. Next up, Apex Zinogre. And boy, does he do a lot of damage. I have dealt with them. I have hunted them. And he is far harder than the other 2 Apexes in the S tiering lists. I don't want to fucking hear it. He's Thunderlord. He is a discounted Thunderlord, but his damage output is so high that 2 of his hits can knock you out. It is crazy how powerful It's crazy how powerful Apex Zinogre is in terms of this game. They made him so powerful that he's the only monster you can actually mount against Amatsu. And as a matter of fact, Amatsu is just right next to him. Right next to him. Both are very strong. Only Amatsu will break your game. Zinogre won't. The amount of graphics on all of Amatsu's moves make finding the hitboxes on Amatsu's moves even more harder on that one. Apex Zinogre, on the other hand, has all of Thunderlord's moves, but are a lot more stronger. His horn attacks can easily one-tap you. His paw slams are even worse. His clawing is even worse. Oof. There's no chill with Apex Zinogre at all. And his Fulgur bugs can 100% stun you. So you need stun resistance 100%. Otherwise, you're going to be rushed down so hard. But yeah, Amatsu is a combination of water and thunder element in this game. He has one-shot move which can be avoided with wire bugs. The great wire bugs on the field. The cannon and ballistas are your best friends, especially when you can time them right. Amatsu being in the air is his gimmick, but not his crutch to winning any hunt, because you can easily get to him with your weapon, especially when he's on the ground. Breaking his parts was easy, farming him was not. But I did end up getting it done. I got to ride Apex Zinogre once with Zostern off recording. It was a short on my channel, so you'll find that somewhere. But yeah, I do pray the next time Amatsu comes around, Katana doesn't come around ruining it, because I do like Amatsu over these forgettable serpents. In fact, anyone who brings these guys up towards me, it's like, who are they? What are they? They just don't exist in comparison to this God of Winds, or the Dragon of the Winds, basically, or Dragon of Storm. The Great Calamity. Now, top 3. Top 3 monsters in the game. Risen Shigaru. Risen Shigaru By far the completed version of all the Megalas put together. You have all the things that the 3 Megalas can do in one package, basically, and then some. You got Chaotic's pin. You got the trifecta range of the frenzy detonations of Chaotic. You have the regulars of Shigaru and Gore Megala, basically. You have all the slams, you have all the rammings, all the clawings of every single monster. The second form of Risen Shigaru has a Nova effect where he makes like frenzy pillars, and they all combine into one, causing a giant Nova, which can kill you if you don't have good enough gear. He has the aggression of Chaotic Gore, especially when he slams his claws into you like 3 to 5 times, and has a range effect to it. When he double slams, it deceives you. Either he ranges you with the frenzy pillars or causes a delayed detonation. Otherwise, yeah. All the same weaknesses as the other Megalas, but just harder to exploit because of how aggressive he is overall. But his gear is worth it. I have his gear. It was my final build of the game. It was my Frenzy Raw build. And his Frenzy gear improves Bloodlust and Wirebugs, basically. So, hunting him was very worth it. I enjoyed his hunt tremendously. But boy, is he hard. Very much hard. So, be careful. Now, final monster of the game being Primordial Malzeno. Same aggression as Scorned Magnamello, has another phase, but the secondary phase is his weakness, more so than anything, because this is an iteration of Malzeno before he's taken over by the Quiros, like regular Malzeno here. So while his aggression, range, and attack power is more so than regular Malzeno's, he is not a force to be reckoned with in terms of like being underestimated. You cannot underestimate this dragon at all. The Blood Blight and the Dragon Blight adds up, making it harder to deal with them. The range factor makes it harder to heal. His aggression makes it harder to heal, especially. He teleports more so than regular Malzeno. And his damage is almost off the charts, if anything. It's insane how powerful he is. And boy, does he feel like a chore. If you want a really strong, by far the strongest lifesteal build in the game, if you want the strongest if you want the strongest life steal build in the game, you want Malzeno's gear. Primordial Malzeno's gear. And you're good to go. That's really all there is to it. Dragon is his weakness, but you have to really be on your guard against him because of his aggression. And you have to find those openings as they come, otherwise you're going to be overwhelmed. And his Novas are unblockable. You need guard up for that. Or you need to super armor it or super ban it. He also has a Nova, which can one-shot you if you're not careful. And you're even more caught off guard when his Nova is a teleportation onto you and slams on the ground, basically. So you really need to be careful. The environment can help you, but because of the fact he's another dragon, immobilizing him is harder. So, woe betide the poor soul who comes in inexperienced against this dragon. So, I recommend doing your research, or if you have the right gear, good luck. Final monster. Hardest monster in the game. Risen Crimson Glow Valstrax. The Fatalis of this game. Oh my god, I hate this monster. I hate this fucking monster. I like Valstrax. I love Valstrax. I will happily hunt Valstrax again, but this monster makes me hate him, honestly. I just can't. I just can't with him. I went in a AR investigation, like around 200 AR. Fully geared, Feline Defender, Moxie. maxed out gear. And all it takes for this guy is 2 tapped. Dead. No chance to heal at all. Dead. Aside from the Dragon Blight, but once he's in his secondary phase, his ambush is a 1 tap unless you wire bug away. You can't like run away because his Dragon Blasts from the sky keep you in place so that once he does land, he really does land. Crash lands into you like a comet. It's crazy how much damage. Risen Crimson Glow Valstrax is by far the most overtuned monster in the game. Nobody could convince me otherwise. Nobody could tell me, oh, this monster's easy. Just do this, just do that. No. Anyone who tells me in the comment section that he's easy or get good or anything like that, you're banned. Perma-banned. Hidden from my channel forever. Never to be seen or heard from again. No. Look at our experience with this monster true and through, and you'll see why this monster is so blatantly hard. Capcom, learn this lesson about balancing monsters and take it for what it is. I like Monster Hunter. I really do. I played it since Free Me Night, and I've gotten into the New World. This is my secondary New World game outside of Iceborne, but boy, does Capcom need to do a better job with monster balancing. And to add more monsters too, because in case you haven't noticed, a lot of these monsters are clones of each other. More variety? No. How many Pisces Wyverns do you see? How many Brute Wyverns do you see? As far as I'm concerned, there's no balance here. None. Shitty balance at that. But yeah. I'm not going to give my review of the game because I already did at this point. So take it for what you will in terms of my opinions. If I missed anything in terms of the difficulty of these monsters, let me know. Or if there's anything I didn't cover as far as monsters go, as far as what they do, let me know down in the comment section, and I will clarify or add more to it as a comment. So yeah. Yeah, this is the full list. This is the full list right here for each monster in the game. And with that, that officially puts the end to my Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak run. It was a good run. I had fun. I'm happy that my pack stuck by me this time in comparison to Iceborne. And I'm glad I got to hunt every single monster in the game, at least once. There were some good moments, there were some bad moments, there were some LOL moments, some stupid moments. There were a lot of moments that I could chalk down in each of my videos. But I'd rather you watch them all beforehand and go from there. So stay tuned because I'm going to do a GU tier list soon for easiest to hardest monster. And hopefully I'll be able to do that list more justice than this one. So yeah. With that being said, hope you all enjoyed. Feel free to drop a like. Feel free to subscribe if you want more. And yeah, one last look at the list before we close out. Yeah. Stay tuned, as there is more to come in Monster Hunter. I will return in another Monster Hunter game. If I'm not done with GU by this time, I will continue with GU. Otherwise, yeah. This was a good run. Despite the flaws, I had fun. I had fun with the game. And yeah. With that being said, thank you all for watching.